chakua. Sisi iko ndani ya pamoja. Sisi iko ndani ya pamoja. Yeah. Sahili kudunga kidogo. It's good like that. Okay, that's good. It's there. So,
we could even try 180.
no.
Or will that be pushing
That
it?
is enough. 1, 2. 1, 2.
Just yeah, you see, you said it's a little bit. No, we could even try 180. Will that be pushing it?
1, 2. 1, 2. It's too loud, eh?
People have said that easily over 100 times already.
One, two.
Wait. Wait.
1, 2.
It's a little behind.
One, two.
Wait.
One, two. It will come. Okay. Weka, play. It will come, don't worry. It will come, don't worry. It will come. Junior, kuja ubadilishe. It's Jamhuri, not Madaraka.
Huh?
It's Jamhuri, not Madaraka.
What's the difference?
Jamhuri. Enda weka Jamhuri. Weka Jamhuri, not Madaraka. So you stop that one, we create another one.
No, you can just save it, change it.
No, you can't change it.
Yes, you can.
Okay, change basi hapo.
J
A M M H U R I.
U-R-I.
Yes.
Let's check.
No, don't worry. That's okay.
you sure?
Iko sawa, weka.
This is correct. 18 hours ago.
Weka. Save.
All changes have been saved.
So, that's good. That's okay.
It's good, Eddie.
That's okay.
No, music, yes, not bell bottoms.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Minnesota. We are celebrating Jamhuri Day in style from Minnesota. Thank you. Welcome. Watch live. Thank you. Day in style from Minnesota. Thank you. Welcome. Watch live. Thank you. My face? Okay.
Eddie, this beta thing is good for monitoring.
Okay, that's good now. You can pick some pictures.
Okay. I just have to plug it in.
Check, check. Check, 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 check.
Why is it photos? They told you photos.
That's good enough.
Take photos.
Try. Try.
Already did. Already tried. I'm gonna be standing up the whole time.
You know, Joe, I like it.
Nafurahi kuona.
Nimefurahi kukuona pia.
Hey, sisi ndio tuko ndugu yangu. Karibu sana. Watu wanaangalia sasa, kama watu yako iko Kenya, unaweza kuambia tuko live. Tuko live. Sasa huyo ni ule. Wale kwa pale wale the other table.
Oh, that's nice, man.
Yes. Wale uko nyuma.
Oh, okay.
Ule.
Ya ule jamaa.
Ndio. Thank you.
How can you do that?
Live streaming. Yeah, live streaming. Yeah. Thank you. Karibu. Nzuri sana. Labda ya kwako. Nashukuru kukuona. Thank you. How are you, sir? Thanks for coming. Thank you. You know this guy here? Yeah. You know him? Yeah. Oh, I've seen him before. Oh, you've seen him before? Yeah. That's very good. But his name is Titus. Eh? His name is Titus. Oh. Yeah, he must have been talking too loud. Thank you very much. So let me hope there are no people who are going to get worried that you are online. No, that's absolutely fine. Okay. How did you do that? You were somewhere in the ceiling room, or what did you do that? Yes, we were somewhere in the ceiling room. That's yes. Mm-hmm. Oh no. This is interesting. So. Wow. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Hey, I'm Titus, by the way. I'm Omweri. Okay, let's meet you. Thank you very much. Okay. Omweri. Yes. Bernard. Bernard, not Bernardo. Yes. Sure, Bernardo. Yeah. Okay. That is it. Yeah. Karibu sana. Yeye hatujamweka hapa. Tunamwonyesha huyu ako live. Like literally got me and like, I'm live. Is that streaming? What's going on? Yeah. We are streaming live. Really? Yes. We want the world to know that we are here. Tuna celebrate hata sisi.
Oh, but you're there too.
Yeah, sasa the camera is capturing us.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, the camera is getting us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that was right.
Yeah. Karibu sana. Karibu. Habari yenu? Nzuri. Naona mnakula polepole. Bado mnakunywa. Kadogo? Habari yako? Wewe naita wewe kadogo kangu. Kadogo kangu. My little sis. What?
Oh,
yes. Karibu sana.
Oh,
okay. Thank you.
That's for dinner and I didn't know what to order.
Yeah. Yep. unasema it's on. So you'll have this one. When somebody is speaking, please make sure weke kwa tai alafu aongee. Tafadhali. It's on. It's on. There is a way of muting this way.
You also know you're being recorded, eh? So make sure you. You're on now.
Alright. And then that guy needs, he said that when I turn this on,
Yeah.
but it's not stopping the music.
So let me tell him that you give him a cue to give a shout.
He said that if I turn this on, it kind of stops. Okay, so the city is going to play first, and then the national anthem.
But let me tell him that you give him a cue.
Yeah, I'll just put a thumbs up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh no, you guys can do better than that. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Okay, good evening, my fellow Kenyans. Good evening, friends of Kenya. Oh, you can do better than the Kenyans, come on. Or maybe you've become Kenyans, right? All right, so welcome to our celebration of the 52nd Jamhuri Day, Kenya's Independence Day. We're very happy that you have all made it a point to come and celebrate with us in the Kenyan fashion. We apologize, but some of our friends are still straddling and they will be here. We're hopeful. So to start off, the way we normally do, we will ask Pastor Peter Gisiri to come and just bless everyone here and just kind of start us off with some word of faith and spiritual.
So let us pray. Our God, Lord, our sustainer, our life giver, in you we come this very hour, thanking you for giving us an opportunity to gather together like this, coming together with a purpose. We appreciate this far that you have made us to see. And the way, Lord Almighty, you are seated here, we know for sure, were you not the person in control, we could not see this far. Here we come, presenting this occasion before you. As we go through this occasion, we ask for your blessing. We ask, King of Glory, that you want to be in our midst, even to see us through in a joyous kind of integration, celebrating, and everything that goes through in this place. That by the end of this occasion, it want to be for the glory and honor of you. We thank you, O life giver. So we pray and believe. And everybody say, Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much.
Oh, here we go.
All right, so we are going to make sure that we honor our two countries, for those of us who are from Kenya, and as well as our natural country here where we reside. So please, let's all stand for the two national anthems. Thank you. You can all be seated. So I want to now officially welcome you all again to this year's Jamhuri Day. This is one of the first Jamhuri Days that our committee has worked hard to organize. We usually just do the Madaraka Day in the summer, but this year we decided to move on and try and also honor Kenya's Independence Day. So with that, what we're going to do is I'm just going to quickly introduce those who were instrumental in getting this event together. So if I could have the committee members for Jamhuri Day please come forward, and let's just do a very quick introduction so that our guests can know who their hosts are. So I'll introduce our president, the president of the committee. And our president is our very able, no, I'm teasing him. I call him Chewy. So he'll give you his full name and he will tell you exactly what organization he's from. But he's our president, and so I'm going to give him the honor of introducing the rest of his team, which is the rest of us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lillian. I will say in Swahili, hamjambo. That means how are you? So thank you very much for making your time to come in today. I'm quickly going to introduce the team that has been working tirelessly to make sure that at least we have such events to honor our country, Kenya. So I'll start from my left. Alan Kemboi. He's one of the officials for one of the Kenyan groups. We have George Ndege, we call him Jojo. He's one of our leaders and premier guys here in Minnesota. And then to my right, we have our very able MC Lillian Otieno. She's also the vice president of AKIA, one of the Kenyan groups as well. And then next to her, I like to call her Senator Veronica Rotich. So also she's very instrumental in terms of actually making sure that Kenyans come together. So I share the same passion that she has a lot in terms of bringing Kenyans together. Next to her is I call him the CNN guy, Tom Guitar. Tom Guitar is also very instrumental in our community here. Tom Guitar owns a newspaper called Mshale, an online newspaper, but also he's one of our leaders here who has also tried to make sure our community comes together as well. And then next to her is also, I call her another Iron Lady. Her name is Joanne Misoi, also one of our leaders here in our community, very instrumental as well in terms of trying to bring our community forward. And then next to him, I call him the Prince, Mr. Botuna Ntisia. Also, he's the chairman and president of one of another Kenyan community group as well. And then next to him is also my very able assistant for the group that I lead, Mr. Wycliffe Chakua. So again, I want to say thank you for this group for coming together. And basically, what we are trying to do and what we're doing going forward is pretty much that we are going to start presenting a one united Kenya. And through events like this and also events that bring Kenyans together, we are going to always start working together and also presenting one front. So again, for today, thank you for coming, and let's celebrate our 52nd Kenyan Independence Day. And before I go, also I would like to say that I got a call yesterday from the Kenyan ambassador to the US, Mr. Gidai. He also sends his support and warm wishes for this occasion as well. So thank you very much.
And I don't know if Chui introduced himself, but Chui is Geoffrey Gichana and he's the president of Mwanyagitinga. Please clap for Mr. Gichana. All right, so we are about to eat, so I hope I don't look like dinner right now. But before we do that, one of the things that we also wanted to highlight during this event is just a few organizations and personalities who either do some work among us or who have some business opportunities or prospects or just want us to make sure that we mention them. So we're going to give a few folks here just 2 minutes, 5 minutes to just introduce themselves, just say briefly what they do, just 2 minutes please, and then we'll move forward. So the first group that I'll call on stage is AMWORG. So we have a representative from AMWORG who can come here and just say 1 or 2 things.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth, as he said. I stand here. I have about 2 capacities. I stand here as African Minnesota Women Awareness Group. We are about 13 ladies who came together to look at domestic violence because our Kenyan community was hit around the year 2010, and some of us had an impact. Every moment we know there's a woman, there's some children, there's some men who have been affected with domestic violence. So I'm here to let you know in case anybody needs our address. We have an office in Brooklyn Park, and our phone number is 763-438-3314. I'm going to put it up so that people, in case you have a question, you can ask me. But today, I think I was told I just have 2 minutes to say who we are, what we do, and how we can support our women. We have some referrals too. We have case management. We meet every month. We discuss about the way forward. We get resources from the Department of Human Services. So we are here to support those who are affected and also who want to support ourselves as women and men, maybe who have also been affected with this problem of domestic violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have a guest among us who is from WAVE. Is our WAVE guest still here? Yes, Will Fogel. So he's just going to come and say hello and just say 1 or 2 things.
Thank you, Lillian. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good Jamhuri day. I know that I've done enough of these to know that the key to a good 2-minute speech before dinner is keeping it to 1 minute. So I will be quick. I'm here on behalf of Drew, our founder, and really our whole team, just to thank this community for your support, for your use, for your suggestions when we fall short or how we can be better. I'll be around for a few minutes after dinner starts and would love to hear anything good or bad about what we're doing. Know, because I've already talked to a few people here who didn't know, we now send to bank accounts if you're trying to send to a bank account back in Kenya. And we've recently launched in Ethiopia and would love your help spreading the word to any Ethiopians you know. So thank you very much. Thank you to the organizers of the event. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Will. All right, so we'll have a few of these as we eat and as we go on with the program. So at this point, I think I will just invite everybody. The food is ready, so we can start getting our food. And the way I think is respectful for us to do it, the first 2 tables here where we have our distinguished guest speakers will head first to the buffet table. And then we will just kind of flow, and someone will come and ask your table to move over to the buffet table. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your dinner, and throughout the dinner we'll probably have some more discussions. And I encourage all of you to meet someone that you don't know. Don't stay in your little place. So get up and say hello to other folks and get to know other people. Thank you. So as we're, can I get your attention please? As we are getting our food and socializing, I just want to bring your attention to one item that is on your tables. So if you look around your table, there's a sheet of paper, a half sheet of paper. And what it essentially says is the committee that you saw up here that was introduced, we have been working together to try and bring these events to you. We do not have a name because we come from various organizations. And so we want to include you all in trying to come up with suggestions on names, what we can call ourselves, Kenyan leaders in Minnesota from Kenya, whatever comes to your mind. So let your creative juices flow and just give us some suggestions. And if you like, you can actually write your name against the suggestion and we'll probably get you a free ticket in the next dinner. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Are you enjoying the food? Oh, okay. I guess you're still eating, so that is not a resounding. So please feel free to continue to help yourself. We have a lot of food. Please make sure you make as many trips as you'd like to the buffet. Don't be shy. You won't be looking. But we're still going to continue to eat and socialize. But as we do that, there's just a few people who I would like to call up just to say a quick hello and introduce themselves, like I mentioned before. So, Osman, maybe you can come and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business. Osman.
Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers. For sure, it's not an easy thing to do. And well, my name is Ibrahim Osman. I'm from Garissa. I grew up in Nairobi. What I basically do is import and export. We import, various products from around the globe. But our main product is Kenyan product. So we do import the pepper, jacket beans, royco, and tea masala and those kind of stuff. So anybody who is thinking of, getting Kenyan products at a cheaper price, feel free to reach us. And that's about it. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Osman. Osman told me he's a little bit shy, but I think he did a good job. So please give him another round of applause. And so if you're interested in the Kenyan products, please just see Osman is going to be here with us for some time. Somebody just asked me where do we find him. So perhaps you can let folks know how they can get a hold of you. All right, thank you. Okay, so there is a guest, a very distinguished guest that has joined us, and I think we would be remiss if we don't give her just 1 minute to come and say hello to all of us. She is a great friend of Kenya, has always been a very great friend of Kenya, was instrumental in getting together, I think it's Eldoret City, Eldoret City and Minneapolis as sister cities. So we want to give at least a few minutes to Judge Ajula to come and just say a quick hello to all of us. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to say thank you to Veronica and Tom and the entire committee, and good evening to Mayor Sharon Sells-Belton. Thank you for coming tonight. And Mr. Osman, one of my fondest memories of Kenya, I go every year, but the best memory is being met in Garissa with a tall pot of chai. So with you coming from Garissa, I know your products are superior because the best chai is in Garissa. I want to just thank everyone and let you know we have been working with Western Gishu County and the neighboring counties to continue to provide capacity building training, leadership training for nurses, advocacy for persons with disabilities, and all programs have been requested by the Western Gishu government. And we are now in our third year. We're following the new dispensation and doing the training once a year. We've invited Mayor Hodges to come to Kenya, and current events prevent her from traveling right now, but it is still on her list to travel when the opportunity comes. And Governor Jackson Mandago has made several trips to Minnesota, including for the Sister City International Conference this summer. So thank you again, and congratulations on the anniversary, the 52nd anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Lejeune. So now we are going to get to our first speaker of the night. Our first speaker tonight is Sergeant Salim Omari. And I'll just give you a brief bio about Sergeant Salim Omari. Salim is currently a sergeant to the St. Paul Police Department. Born to a Kenyan father and a Jamaican mother, Salim grew up in South Minneapolis. After high school, Salim attended the University of St. Thomas, where he earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a minor in psychology, and later in 2013, he received his master's degree in police leadership from the University of St. Thomas. Sergeant Salim Omari started his law enforcement career at the Bloomington Police Department in 2004, where he worked patrol in the city of Bloomington for 2.5 years before transferring to the St. Paul Police Department in 2007. As a St. Paul police officer, Salim worked patrolling the Frogtown neighborhood for nearly 5 years. In addition to work as a patrol officer, Salim has worked street-level narcotics and spent 2 years working in the gang unit. Salim has been a member of the St. Paul Police SWAT team for the past 6 years and is currently a team leader on the SWAT team. Salim was promoted to sergeant in February 2015 and currently works in the department's training unit. Salim enjoys working with youth and serving the citizens of St. Paul and, of course, other communities at large. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Sergeant Salim Omari to the podium.
Thank you. I think I need to pay Lillian for saying such nice things about me. Good evening, and first and foremost, thank you to the committee for inviting me to speak with you folks tonight. As Lillian mentioned, I'm born to a Kenyan father and a Jordanian mother, so I have a lot of pride in the Kenyan community, and it's truly an honor for me to be here with you guys. As she also said, one of my passions is service, and whether that be serving the citizens of St. Paul, serving the Kenyan community, serving youth, it's something I'm extremely passionate about. Although I'm a St. Paul police officer, I'm speaking as Salim tonight. The things that I say are not necessarily the same words or opinion that Chief Smith of the St. Paul Police Department would say. That's just my disclaimer, although I think that my experience, my education, and mentors that I've had at the St. Paul Police Department would, in fact, actually echo the things that I'm going to tell you tonight. My intent is to help bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community, specifically tonight, the Kenyan community. And over the last 11 years, I've seen several instances in which brothers and sisters of ours have found themselves in situations that were not so beneficial to them. And oftentimes that's due to lack of knowledge and cultural differences between what we're dealing with here in the United States and what our brothers and sisters are used to back home in Kenya. So as I speak tonight, try and make note of a few things and share with your brothers and sisters, your fellow Kenyans, so that they also can benefit from what we're going to talk about. Jojo gave me a call and asked me to kind of talk about the do's and don'ts, if you will, when you have contact with the police and some of the issues that affect the Kenyan community. So I'm gonna try and touch on that. And if there's things that I don't speak of or that you're interested in, and I'll be around so we can always speak offline also. A couple numbers I want you to keep in mind of. Each year, 14,552 officers are injured as a result of being assaulted by assailants. 120 officers roughly are killed in the line of duty, and 56 of those officers are killed by a violent assailant. So keep those numbers in the back of your mind as I talk about kind of why the police do some of the things they do and how that may be misconstrued for the way that we are rather than the way that we're trained. The high likelihood of being injured or assaulted in law enforcement has created a law enforcement officers who are very cautious all the time, and sometimes that caution may make us seem rigid or insensitive or standoffish or impolite. It's not the case. When you enter the police academy, you are constantly told you have to be safe, you have to protect yourself, you have to protect others, because there are violent people out there. And although nobody in here has any intention on harming the police, you still have to keep that in mind, because the officers are assaulted very regularly and come in contact with not bad people, but people in bad situations. And the decisions that a lot of people make in those encounters are not what you and I would decide to make. So even though we have, most people have no intention on hurting officers always have to remember that nothing is routine, okay? And you may stop 1,000 cars, go to thousands of domestic assault calls, and take report after report, robbery after robbery, but nothing is routine, nothing is the same. Each situation has its own set of circumstances, and those are the things that are in the back of an officer's mind. So keep these things in mind as I talk about kind of the do's and don'ts, that training that the officers have, the training that the officers are instilled with to be able to make sure they can protect you folks, make sure that they can go home to their families at the end of their shifts. And again, it's really important that we share this information with our fellow brothers and sisters, our fellow Kenyans, so that they are not hindered by whether it be cultural differences or just lack of knowledge when they have action or contact with the police. So we're going to start out with simple traffic stops. Okay. Whenever in the United States here, when we see red lights and sirens before us, we have to what? We have to pull over to the right and stop, right? Not pull over to the left, not stop in the middle of the road. We have to pull over to the right and stop. Now, sometimes when you're driving along and you don't see, you didn't do anything, you don't think you did anything wrong, and there's a car behind you with lights and the car's making all kinds of noises, it's easy to think, well, what's going on? And we like to process that, and we like to take time to process that. And therefore we may drive another quarter of a mile while we process that. But in the back of an officer's mind, because they have been trained and instilled that there are bad people out there are people who make bad decisions and want to hurt others, these officers are starting to process, is this person driving another quarter mile because they are hiding contraband, because they are concealing a weapon, because they are considering fleeing? Those are the things that are immediately going through that officer's mind, because I can tell you, most people pull over immediately. And although in this situation, which happens quite often, the driver is merely trying to process what is going on, but there's a trickle-down effect. Quarter of a mile later, the driver pulls over to the right and thinks that he or she did not do anything wrong. They just don't know, so they open their door to say, "Officer, what did I do?" And now there's that, again, that trickle-down effect. So an officer has followed a quarter of a mile, and now you get pulled over and the door opens up and the officer immediately goes to defense mode. And the officer wants to protect themselves and protect everybody else out there. So as we start to share with our fellow Kenyans, our brothers and our sisters, our neighbors, especially those that are newer to the country and maybe are not as assimilated, we have to remind these brothers and sisters that this is a quick way to find yourself in situation because the officer does not know if you are one of those folks who are going to try and make a bad decision. So it's possible that you have your trunk or your gas can is open, and the officer is stopping you because they want to tell you that your gas can is open. It's possible that your tire is almost flat, and the officer is stopping you for that reason, or maybe you made a minor traffic offense. Whatever, maybe somebody called 911 and said that the person driving the silver Toyota was speeding and zigzagging. There's lots of Toyota Avalons, we all agree, right? So just be mindful of those things with simple traffic stops and share that with your fellow brothers and sisters. If stopped at nighttime, interior dome lights, fantastic tool. The officer will see that there's nothing in here to hide. You're making yourself it's going to be visible. It will relieve the officer's tension. It will allow the officer to investigate a potentially very minor thing without worrying about other things in the car that may be able to hurt them. One issue that I've actually seen with several of our African brothers and sisters when I make traffic stops is that they're reluctant to provide driver's license and proof of insurance without having a conversation as to what occurred. And this is, in Minnesota, when stopped by the police, you have to give your driver's license and proof of insurance. It's not optional, you have to provide those items. And the reason why an officer wants these items before conducting a conversation is because, again, there are people that make bad decisions, and there are people that decide to flee from the police. And they're smart. They wait until the officer's at the car and conducting business there, and then the driver will throw the car into drive and take off. They've just given themselves an advantage because the officer now has to run back to their patrol car, get in it, and they're at a disadvantage. So that's the reason why an officer is going to ask for those items, that identification piece, before having a conversation as to the reason for the stop and conducting the conversation there. If somebody were to decide to flee at that point, the officer at least knows who it is that fled from them. So, not that I worry about anybody who's fleeing from the police, but if you're wondering why the officer is so insistent on having a driver's license and proof of insurance before they conduct a conversation with you, that is the reason. Officers will, after they have those items, they're more than willing to have those conversations with you. So just be mindful of that piece. I always say, don't hold traffic, or don't hold court on the side of the road. It's not the appropriate place. Everyone has a right to contest tickets, but know that if you don't like the service that you receive from the police or you receive a ticket, it's a judge that's going to be able to make those determinations. Don't hold court on the side of the road. Traffic related, but a little bit different, and something that really does hinder our fellow Africans and our Kenyan brothers and sisters are DWI offenses, driving while impaired. And it's so important that we share the importance of and the seriousness of driving while impaired. The reason why it's such a big traffic initiative in Minnesota is because of the number of deaths and injury-related crashes that occur as a result of drivers who are impaired. Many police agencies in Minnesota have the #1 patrol initiative as DWIs. So if you are in any of the First Spring suburbs, it's likely that their #1 patrol initiative are DWIs, again, because of the amount of injury-related crashes and deaths. The legal limit in the state of Minnesota is a .08. And I currently run police academies in St. Paul, and one of the things we're doing on Monday and Tuesday with our recruits are we're bringing in a bunch of role players who drink and consume alcohol to get impaired so that the recruits can test them. And every year when we do this is serious. We send them home in we send them home with responsible, sober adults. But one of the things, the reason why I bring that up is one of the things that people are they're so interested in knowing is how much can I drink and still drive? Obviously, that's not what we want to be figuring out, but they're often disappointed because people are 2 beers, 2 cocktails, 2 glasses of wine in, and they find themselves impaired, and they find themselves in a situation where they cannot operate a motor vehicle, and they don't feel like they're impaired physically, but they are. So the state of Minnesota takes those offenses very seriously, and it's important that we share with our brothers and sisters how serious that is here in Minnesota, because not only will your car be impounded, therefore you cannot drive to work, you will lose your driver's license, therefore you cannot drive to work, and there is, depending on how high your blood alcohol content is, will determine additional community service, jail time, how long the loss of the license will be. So that is, I'm finding that to be a very regular occurrence with our Kenyan brothers and sisters. So please spread the word that just because you don't feel impaired does not mean that you're not impaired. Again, my goal is for none of us to ever end up in a situation where we make a bad decision because we're not bad people. One of our sisters mentioned domestic abuse, and they have a service for Africans, and you spoke about how prevalent domestic abuse is here in our state, in our country. And again, another item that I'm finding our brothers and sisters on the wrong side of the law with our domestic assaults. And culturally, there are differences. However, we have to be very mindful that the state of Minnesota takes domestic assault extremely serious. We, as police officers, have discretion with a lot of things. With domestic assaults, there is no discretion. The law says that when there is evidence of a domestic assault, an officer must make an arrest. The officer shall make an arrest. So we have to share with our brothers and sisters how serious domestic assaults are. And I just want to touch on a few things on that. When we talk about domestic assaults, it's not only your spouse, it's family members, it's roommates, anybody that you have had an intimate relationship with. So be very mindful, fellow Kenyans, be very mindful, fellow Americans, that we cannot be involved in those domestic assault situations. After somebody is arrested for domestic assault, even though you may want to get back with your spouse, the courts will often issue a no-contact order, which prevents you from being around your family, your children, your spouse, and merely going and trying to talk it out is another offense. So it is extremely important here in the state of Minnesota and across the world that we're not involving ourselves in domestic-related offenses. It's good that there's other resources out there, and I definitely think that we should all just continue to educate ourselves in that realm. A couple of final things that I just want to mention. It kind of goes without saying, but officers are very leery of sudden movements. Just be mindful of those things. Officers like to keep space between people. We are very social people. We like to go out and be friendly with people. And officers, when they're working, are very, very particular not to be in those situations. So if you are merely trying to be kind and have a conversation with an officer, don't be surprised if the officer wants to keep a little bit of space. It's their training. It is their training. It's their training. It's their training. I had the opportunity this past week to invite my father to some active shooter training that we did at a local school in St. Paul, and
Thank you very much, Sergeant Salim Omari. I hope we got some good nuggets there that we can use. And maybe we should just give a round of applause to Sergeant Omari's father. He's here. Thank you. Before we go on, I've been asked to make this announcement that Jamhuri Day celebration Minnesota 2015 is actually on YouTube, so we are live. So please smile. Do your best to look really cute on the camera or handsome. That is courtesy of KDR TV. Please give them a round of applause because this is That is KDR TV International, so you can see them for if you have events. They do a fantastic job, so please give them some kudos. Before we go to our next speaker, I just want to invite one person up here. They consider themselves very young professionals, and I had to do a lot of convincing to get them to buy tickets to come here to this event. So I promised that I would give him 1 minute to just say hello and to kind of say some of the good work that I think some of the public service work that they're doing. So Graham, I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, thank you, Lillian. First, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here and for the organizers getting such beautiful Kenyan faces in Minnesota to come out. I think it's incredible that you're able to do that in December, so really good job there. A little bit of audience participation in my 1 minute. So I want you to think of a high school student that you know that's maybe in your house, or somebody that's very close to you. If you know a high school student, an 8th grader perhaps, to 12th grade, just a quick show of hands. Keep your hand up if this is somebody that you see great potential in them. Keep your hand up if you would love to have this person have the resources they need in terms of mentorship to help them reach those high potentials. Then I got the right group. Thank you. So, my name is Graham Gaya, certainly originally from Kenya. I've been in Minnesota for about 5 years now. And as part of being in the community, one of the mentors once told me is, wherever you are, try and get involved. And so, being in Minnesota, my first winter here, I did not take that advice. I stayed indoors from November, December, and you can get the picture. Long winter, staying indoors just didn't happen. The next week I decided I gotta do something different. And that was find something that gives me some passion and also need to plug into the community. So I ended up joining an organization called the National Black NDA. And through that, they have a Leaders of Tomorrow program. This program is aimed at mentoring high school students, and the premise of it is essentially to help them prepare them for transformative leadership in high school, college, and eventually the careers that they're going to have, and also actively participate. So my plug is, if you know this high school student, you've got a lot of faith in them in terms of their future potential, and maybe with just a little bit of mentorship and guidance, they could really make that leap from being a C student to a B student. They can really make that consideration like, okay, I'm not putting in all the effort that I need to be putting in right now to think about college, think about the kind of decision I need to make to help me have choices down the road. Then I think a perfect candidate for the Leaders of Tomorrow program. You guys have the cell phones, plug it in right now. Leaders of Tomorrow program, Twin Cities, sponsored through the National Black NDA. So that's my outside of work plug. And I'll be around, please connect with me. I'll be more than happy to talk about that. And then for the professionals that are in the room, we do have an informal group that we meet about once a month. And it's about just being around people to help empower you, right? A lot of times we're all in avenues where you don't necessarily see the next person to you that looks like you, could relate to your kind of experience. And certainly being in this country, you know, there's a finesse that's needed in terms of navigating the corporate landscape of it. So we have sort of a support group where we get together, and it's really an exchange of ideas and help each other empower each other to get to the next step. So that's also a group that we meet informally, but it's about just empowerment of people around us. So thank you, Lillian. Thank you for the group here, and congratulations to Kenya on another Jamhuri Day.
Thank you. So we have a lot of young professionals here. So they're the leaders of tomorrow. We'll be handing over the baton to them. Some of us are done our part. Our next speaker comes to us courtesy of Mutune Mutisia, who is one of our committee members here. Our speaker is Dr. Carl Anderson. Dr. Carl Anderson has lectured nationally and internationally in the field of implantology and has over 25 years of experience in both the surgical and restorative aspects of implantology. He is a diplomat of the International Congress of Oral Implantology, or otherwise ICOI. He also has a Master of Science degree in periodontology and is active in many dental organizations, including the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. Dr. Anderson's clinic, Sedation and Implant Dentistry, is located on Suburban Avenue in St. Paul, Minnesota. Beyond his dental practice, he is also a 200K independent Zango distributor who introduced Zango juice and other products in Africa, starting with South Africa and now in Kenya, which led the products into East Africa. Dr. Anderson is also the co-founder of Giving Hands, Giving Hands non-profit organization, which is a 501c3 charitable organization based in St. Paul, Minnesota. The other co-founder is Mutune Mutisia. Giving Hands non-profit organization was formed in order to serve those in need of support for education and provide social resources to help them improve their lives. It is through this endeavor and other ventures that Dr. Anderson and his team have done some amazing work in Kenya and other parts of Africa. So ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome one of our now Kenyan brothers, Dr. Anderson.
Okay, now you're going to get it unplugged. You know, Officer Omar, you know, works for the system somewhat, so he has to be so politically correct, okay? I'm a Daktari Wameno. I'm a dentist, okay? Nobody likes dentists anyway, right? So I don't have to be so politically correct tonight, so I'm going to sort of unplug and give it as is, you know? Dr. Omari and I actually were talking a little beforehand. I know why I like you now, because you're a St. Thomas graduate.
1 second.
Okay. Ooh, am I going?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's in your pocket.
Okay, put this in my pocket.
Oh.
So this one doesn't work?
No, it will work.
Oh, so now you got stereo, right? Okay. I'm not going to sing, you know. But I also went to college at St. Thomas, a great school. I was very fortunate to be given a scholarship to go there, and they only let me go there a year, and then they kicked me out. But anyway, that's a long story. That was many years ago, okay? But, you know, Matuni always volunteers me to speak because I know he doesn't like to do it at all. And I think the impression is that I like to do it. I don't necessarily like to do it, okay? I'm a little bit embarrassed. You know, I flunked speech class, Johnson High School. I took a D. That was the only D I ever gotten in high school because I wasn't going to get up there in front of everybody and talk and do a speech, okay? I'm from the east side of St. Paul where the men are men and the women are too. And so, I mean, I'm sitting there eating this, Sergeant Omari gives, you know, these tips, and I'm just going, why didn't they give this to us when we were in high school? You know, I could have saved myself a little jail time myself, you know? I've got relatives, I've got interracial marriages within our family, so I got relatives in the Caribbean. I used to live in the island of Antigua, actually, back in the 80s, okay? And just to give you an idea of stupidity in the mentality of people that still exist, okay, even in Antigua, okay, or Trinidad. For instance, my cousin comes to live with us when I was 17 years old for Trinidad and Tobago down in the Caribbean. And my cousin says, boy, a woman be like a drum. The more you beat her, the better she sounds. And I go, it doesn't quite sound quite right, Although, being from the east side, there's, unfortunately, I saw a lot of domestic abuse when I was a kid, okay? But anyway, happy Jamhuri Day, okay? Now, Matuni didn't even tell me really what this was. I call up Matuni, and of course, Matuni and I have this communication gap, He's speaking Swahili English, I'm speaking Polish, Spanish, and English, and Swahili all mixed together. Somebody said Jambo to me, and I was going to answer him in Polish. My wife is from Poland, and I do speak Polish. But I looked up the Swahili word means republic. Republic. I thought, wow, I didn't know that Kenya is the Republic of Kenya. Oh yeah, wait a minute, on my passport they charge the Mzungu a few dollars more to get in, by the way. And I don't know if I like that, maybe you get in easier than I do, but they always charge me a little bit more. Not so much in Kenya, but down in Tanzania, they charge double. Yeah, German guy right in front of me, They charge him $50 to go into Tanzania, and so I come up and I give a U.S. passport, he looks at me, and he charges me $100. I don't know. See, a republic is supposed to be a rule of law. There's supposed to be a rule of law, It's not a democracy, it's a rule of law. Its power resides in the elected officials representing the citizen body, and the government leaders exercise power according to the rule of law. Well, America was founded as a republic too. I guess we've fallen a little bit short of that rule of law thing. I think that's been happening. Benjamin Franklin said, a woman asked him, when Benjamin Franklin, one of the founders of this, of our country. In fact, a lot of people don't know George Washington was asked to be the king of the United States. They asked him, they wanted him to be the king. And no, they decided, no, they're going to come up with this thing. And they came and got together, and the delegates got together, and they came up with a republic and a constitution. And when Benjamin Franklin walked out the door, a woman asked, "Sir, what did you give us?" And he said, "Ma'am, we've given you a republic, if you can keep it." Okay? And so we have to be aware a little bit sometimes of these historical things. And, I think being a Mzungu, okay, and having traveled the world a little bit, having a little bit of worldwide experience, I was able to see things in my life that maybe I just give you some of those observations. Because I love Kenya, okay? And that's how we sort of started the children's charity. We just saw a need. We happened to be there. Kangundo kids, we call them. We got a thing going in Kangundo with some blind kids. And that all started just because of the travel I've done. Most of the travel I've done was related to business, trying to seek dollar, trying to help make some money and help other people make money. And that's how I ended up in Africa. But I had a patient named Julius Zoka. Anybody know Julius? He used to live here in Minnesota. He went back to Kenya, okay? He's from Machakos area. But Julius said to me, "Well, Doc, if you're going to be over in South Africa, why don't you come to Kenya?" Well, my only experience had been the country of South Africa. How many of you in the room have been to South Africa? Whoop. Oh, yeah. South Africa? Yeah? South Africa can get a little dicey. It's not the same as Kenya, is it? I mean, it can be, and there's very good people in South Africa, but their history is different. See? And so you can get in some places in South Africa where, being a Mzungu, you're not too welcome. You know what I'm saying? Okay? And then they have, they have a real violent history down there. And people, bang, bang, down in South Africa, Okay? It's a little bit scary sometimes. So I'm going to talk about hope tonight a little bit, and I had to look up the word hope. Hope is the feeling and expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. See, I have hope for Kenya, okay? I started thinking, well, wait a minute, let's look up in the Bible. And I look up in Hebrews 6:19. It says, "We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure." I thought, what message could I give Kenyans that are Kenyan Americans now, okay? And I thought, wow, I guess the Bible gives a little more stronger and confident, sort of meaning to the word hope. So, this is my brain, ADD, elemental P, yes, I had that. Yes, they had me in the other classes when I was in school too, because my mind goes a little, and so I'm thinking, well, H for hope. What could I think about in Kenya for the H? Well, besides how many ways can you eat a goat, you know? Okay. Besides that, I started thinking, honor thy father and thy mother. You know, almost every Kenyan I know honors their father and their mother. You know, I know Mama Matune, I know Matune's father, and it's a place in your culture where people are honored, you know, and I think as Americans, we would learn that lesson a little bit better because we've fallen short of honoring our elderly people. You know, we stuff them away in homes, we put them in places, and the kids don't even come visit, you know. But yet, I don't see that with the Kenyan communities, and I really respect that, okay? Honesty. You know, I did my first visual presentation with a computer and a projector and my cell phone, and I had all this stuff, and I was in, what was it, 611? Is that the hotel? 618? 618. So I did this meeting, and of course I've been used to South Africa. And so I come to Kenya and I do a meeting, and I left my cell phone, Jojo, sitting on the table. And I was about 5 minutes, all of a sudden I realized, oh, I got my cell phone. And I looked, and I panicked, because in South Africa, trust me, brother, that cell phone will be gone, you know, okay? I mean, everything gets stolen in South Africa. And I thought, wow, Kenyans are really honest, you know? Yeah, I mean, comparatively, I'm telling you, this is just the Mzungu's perspective, you know? Okay? Happy. I think Kenyans are happy people. You know, they're joyous and happy, always having celebrations. I've supported many of them. I've come to many of them in Minnesota here. Summertime, we got the ones coming in the summertime. The Kamba community, we get together about, you know, a couple times, 3 to 4 times a year. Hardworking. I've seen many, many Kenyans come to this country, and they're always hardworking, you know? I respect that, and I honor that, and I thank you for that, you know? I started thinking about what could I say about Kenya? Well, the concept came to me, opportunity. See, I was in every communist country as communism fell. My wife came out as a refugee, basically, out of Poland, you know, on a political asylum, you know, from Poland during Solidarity. When the fall of communism was starting to happen, ambassador sent people over to her and told her, get out of here right now when you can. We'll give you a passport to America. And she came. My wife came from Poland. She didn't even know English. Most Kenyans know some English. My wife didn't know any English, okay? And she had to start over in this country, and of course we met a few years later and we got married. But I think of Kenya, because I saw it. I saw when communism failed and free market started happening, I saw the unlimited potentials. I saw the new building, the people changing, people getting into business and hustling, basically, things changing. And you know, when I went to Kenya, I saw it. I saw the cranes, I saw the stuff, I saw everything going, and I said, wow, Kenya is a land of opportunity, isn't it? Okay? And opportunity in South Africa, they have a word called oop-port. It's an Afrikaans language, oop-port. It means open port. See, when the traders were first coming to Africa many, many, many years ago, when they come into port and the tide was low, they couldn't come in. When the tide became high and the ship could come in, it was an opportunity, see? And so I thought about that a little bit. Optimistic people. Most Kenyans I've met are very optimistic about the future and about the future of Kenya. Open to new ideas. And then the other O word, you know what it was? Oil. I thought, whoa, I saw something funny last night. I was clicking through the channels and Blood Diamond was on. You ever see the movie Blood Diamond? Okay. Solomon and Denny Archer were on their way to find that diamond, and they're walking through a village that just got shot up by the RUF, and the old man was talking in their language and telling Solomon, he says, yeah, they're doing all this for diamonds. Thank God we don't have oil. Huh? And it's sort of somewhat true when you think about it. Now, Kenya does have the oil, right? And so things are going to happen. But as people, we have the power to sort of watch and make sure that the good things happen instead of the bad things that happen when an opportunity like that comes along. P for politics. That's what I thought about. Every Kenyan's blah, 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 about politics, you know? Okay? Partnerships, prosperity, those kind of things. Peace. I thought about peace, you know, because Kenya has had some trouble, folks, you know? But, you know, usually it's powers that want to divide and conquer. I saw it in India. I've seen it all over the world. As long as people, and I see it in America right now, as long as they can keep people fighting each other, black against white, tribe against tribe. You know, who's starting this stuff? People way up here. Because as long as they can do that, you don't notice that they're stealing over here, you know? It's all divide and conquer. The British used it real well throughout the world. That's how they controlled 3/4 of the world's mass at one time. Divide and conquer. And so I think as Kenyans, no matter what tribe, no matter what religion, and even in America, no matter what tribe, what religion, what race, what color, you know, we got to bind together and help each other that way, instead of fighting with each other, because fighting is just playing into whatever it is they're doing, okay? And E, and hope we have E. I talk about edification. You know, Officer Omari and his colleagues are risking their lives out there in a very, very unfriendly political climate. And they still got to go up, suit up on Monday morning and show up, okay? That's amazing, amazing job that the police officers do in this country, considering the things we do. And education, that's how we got involved in Kangundo, see? I mean, we went there and these blind kids, there was 1,300 people at Kangundo Primary School. It happens to be where Matuni went to primary school, okay? And Mr. Kavua is there, and he starts talking to us, and he's telling us about the blind and the visually impaired children, okay? The parents don't make enough money for those kids to be staying at the school, but how do you send a little blind kid home each day? He can't go home and come back the next day. He can't find his way home, right? And so he was talking about it, and some of the farmers and the people that live out there, you know the income that they're making, you know, less income than is possible to even pay tuition at the school, or at least a half a year's maybe income for a tuition for a blind kid at school. And so he's talking about this and what a struggle was, and you know, Matuni and I started talking, and hey, maybe we can do something. I know a lot of people, and a lot of people want to help. A lot of Americans do want to help, but we don't, you know, aid is destroying a lot of African countries, traditional aid. What we need maybe is to educate these young children, okay? Because see, I don't think a child that's been educated a bit and is mixed and learns things and learns about other cultures and meets other people, I don't think that child's a child that's strapping on a suicide bomb and going into a place and igniting it. I just don't believe that, okay? I believe that education is key really to increase the level of income of some of the people in Kenya. You know, most of the people in this room were maybe blessed that they were able to get education. But you know, there's still a lot of people back home that haven't been able to have that, primarily because of the circumstances they're coming from, okay? And it's a relatively easy thing to everybody pull together and start helping a little bit, okay? And that's the Kangundo kids. And of course, Matuni threw me up in front of the Kangundo. You know, I don't know what was going on there. We showed up there with some braille machines and some magnifiers and some money to pay tuitions on some of these kids. And I don't know, it looked like a big party going on, bigger than this party. And I'm going like, wow, all these people from the village and all around the area, you know, some kind of parent-teacher thing going on or whatever. The kids were getting ready to take their exams. And so all the parents come to say prayers for the children before the national exams. And we just happened to pull in, and of course, what do they want to do? They want to throw the Mzungu up there again, you know, get the Mzungu to talk, you know. And I'm going, oh man, you know, I mean, Matuni, what are you doing? You know, Matuni gets up for about 1 minute, and then he throws me up there. And I'm thinking, God, what do I say to some blind kids in Kenya? I can't even empathize. I can't empathize what it would be like. I don't know, you know. And I sort of do, because I had a son that was really visually impaired, and we didn't realize he was blind until he got old enough where we could correct it with surgery. And then all of a sudden he could see. I didn't know he wasn't seeing most of his life. He never saw a movie because he couldn't see it. I didn't know that, but, but thank God he was in America where we could have access to that kind of surgery, and I had enough money where I could pay for that kind of surgery for him. And I started thinking, God, give me some words to say to these kids. And all of a sudden it occurred to me, and I just got up and I just said, I don't believe you have to have sight to have a vision. But I believe you need to have a vision to survive life. Yeah? Because life's going to be difficult. It's going to kick you around sometimes, right? And you have to have a vision or a hope, if we want to call it, which is what we're talking about, hope for Kenya. You have to have vision or hope. Otherwise, it's going to get too rough out there in the real world. And those kids heard that message, and we've already had some superstars come out of that school. Okay, now you're in America, Kenyans. Kenyan American. My wife is a dual citizen also. I started thinking about that. African. It doesn't say Africant. It says African. Get it? Yeah? You can. I mean, it's African, not Africant. Okay? And I see people from all countries in Africa come here and they succeed. They start doing it. They start get enough education maybe to get into something, maybe get more educated, but the point is they're out there doing and they start climbing and achieving and start having the American dream. But we can't forget our roots, folks. I just went back to Poland, to my wife's roots. And they're sort of left behind, some of these people in these countries, And so I went back and was visiting, in fact on Thanksgiving, I was in Poland visiting my wife's relatives. Okay, language, my wife, when she came, couldn't speak English, so who taught her English? The children, because they could learn it first. She had 2 daughters. I adopted them, but they're my daughters, but she came with 2 daughters. The 2 daughters, because her children learn English faster, right? And more easy. And so they learned it, and then they spoke it, and then she learned English, okay? But they did that so much that my 2 daughters, I speak more Polish than they do. Well, that's not quite right. They should have retained their language skill. Be proud of the languages, the tribal and the Swahili, whatever languages they're speaking, be proud of that and make sure your children are proud of it and speak it to them. Because that's a skill. That's something that will give them value later in life, okay? And language is such a funny thing. Down in South Africa, you know what cock is, right? It means shit, right? And then I come to Kenya or Tanzania and somebody's going, caca. I'm going, hey, I'm thinking he's swearing at me, calling me poop, okay? So language is a funny thing, but I think language is good. Culture and heritage, this is what these meetings are about. But yet it surprises me how many Kenyans are not here tonight. Where are they? They should be here. They should be celebrating their culture and their heritage. Unity versus division, I talked about that. Give me a little story about unity. Communism ended because one of the main countries that supplied the food to Russia, because under a socialist communist system, a country under collectivism, which they tried in Tanzania, by the way, it didn't work in Tanzania either. Collective farming did not work, okay? It didn't work in Soviet Russia either. So the Russians bought their food from who? The Polish farmers. The Polish farmers were always free to produce and sell their excess. And so what did Polish farmers with little tiny subsistence farms do? They grew enough that they actually could become quite profitable selling the excess, and they sold it to Russia. So when Poland, in history, started rebelling against the Russian oppression of communism and the Soviet Socialist Party in Poland, when that whole time period in the 80s started happening, what happened in Poland was a unity amongst people, a solidarity, okay? And people prayed every Friday night. And then they had a Polish Pope. And that was just instrumental in happening. It just happens that Poland is very strongly Catholic. And Jan Paul II came in to be the Pope. And he returned to Poland and he gave a message to the young people. Don't do it with violence. Do it with solidarity and together and just resist. And that's what solidarity was. A whole country went out on strike at one time and eventually collapsed the USSR as we know it. Okay, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and there was a lot of things going on at that time. Ronnie Reagan told Gorbachev to tear down the wall, and it was just time. That system failed, it was time, okay? But I was back in Poland on a second, I think it was the third time, Jan Paul happened to come to Poland, and he came to my wife's hometown. Now you can imagine this. I'm not even Catholic necessarily. My wife is, you know. I mean, I don't have anything against the Catholic faith, but I grew up in a Protestant family, okay? But we were sitting, waiting for the Pope to come to this town, and we went out in the dark, in the morning, before light, into an open field. And I heard people praying. Am I done? 1 minute. I am getting to that point now. See? You're the one that asked me to talk. Okay. So here this field is, I hear these mumbling, I hear people out there, but it's dark. I can't see anything. So first light comes, and as far as I can look this way are people in heads. As far as I can look that way are people in heads. And as far as that way is people in heads. There must have been a couple million people in that open field. And all of a sudden a big helicopter comes flying in. That's Jean Paul. He gets off, and of course, you know the story, he was shot, and so he's very old. He's got a bullet inside of him, and he works his way up to the platform, and everybody's waiting speechlessly, for his speech, waiting anxiously, and the Pope says, Bóg jest miłość. You know, the crowd just like a wave came over the people. And what that meant was, God is love. No more fighting in Kenya. Peace in Kenya. Pray for Kenya. Pray for each other. No more tribalism. It's Kenya. Kenyans together. And East Africans together. Naomba Mungu bariki Kenya. Thank you. Gonna take 2 minutes to get this stuff off. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. A little bit of Saturday Night Live too, right? Okay, so we are going to continue with our program. Thank you very much, Dr. Anderson. Before our main speaker or our keynote speaker comes on the podium, how many of you listened to the President's address today, his Jamhuri address? Really? Oh, one person, you get a prize, a gift. 2 people, well, now everyone's here's the prize and all hands are going up, right? Okay. So I will just take 1 minute to just go through a few highlights for those of us who are from Kenya and Friends of Kenya, and then I will have Veronica come in and introduce our keynote speaker. So for those who may not know, in August of this year, Kenyan athletes gained the most medal counts in the Beijing Games. How many people knew that? Yeah, so please give them a round of applause. And in this year, we had the first visit by a sitting US president since independence in 1963. Anyone know who that sitting US president is? All right. At the same time, I think it was around Thanksgiving, we had Pope Francis visit Kenya, and that was his first African stop. That was his first country to visit in Africa through his African visit. So that was also, Kenya was the first country that he visited. Next week, in Kenya, in Nairobi, we will be having 5,000 delegates to the 10th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization, or WTO. And that is the first time this meeting has been held in Africa, and it's going to be held where? Nairobi. So, round of applause, man, we're doing well. So the only global UN headquarters in the Southern Hemisphere is located in Kenya, and that is the United Nations Environment Program, or UNEP, at the UN headquarters in Gigiri. So that is also kudos to us. Kenya is one of Africa's most attractive investment destinations, economic development, and of course technological advancement. Those of you who are here, if you tuned in to 60 Minutes last week, M-Pesa was featured. Everyone know about M-Pesa here, right? It's a round of applause, guys. Come on. That's a great feat. That is an advancement that is actually being replicated by a lot of countries around the world. They're trying to have that mobile funds transfer and trying to actually use that blueprint from M-Pesa. So that was actually created by Kenyans. We are also making a lot of advancement in the transport infrastructure area. We are actually towards the last phase of the standard gauge railway line. That is the one from Mombasa to Nairobi. And once that is completed, apparently the next phase is going to be from Kisumu to Malaba. So we are going to be connected very well. Life expectancy in 1963. Anyone know what the life expectancy in Kenya was in 1963? 41? He says 40. Who said 48? Yes, it was 48. Dr. Anderson got that. All right, and now it is actually, what is the life expectancy age right now? 47. It cannot be 47. It is, in 2014, life expectancy was at 60. So that is a great leap through from 1963 all the way to 2014. There's the Beyond Zero campaign, which is run by, or spearheaded by our First Lady, Margaret Kenyatta. And the Beyond Zero campaign positively impacts infant mortality rates, works with issues that are affecting women and children, especially at childbirth. And that has shown a very positive decrease or impact on infant mortality rate. Now, to those of us in this room, 3 million living in the diaspora, that is all of us here, so give yourselves a round of applause. But not only that, we remit $1.4 billion to Kenya every year. That is good. And we do this and impact areas like education, business, healthcare, and investment in other ventures. So we are more empowered today as a nation than in 1963, and we are now considered a middle-income country. So that is great. But make no mistake, with all these highlights, we still have some challenges, or what I choose to call challenges and opportunities. And some of those key areas that we still have challenges and opportunities are in the areas of security and, of course, corruption. And I encourage you to listen to the President's address. He talked extensively about corruption and some of the strides that they are hoping to continue to do. It takes a while. It's almost part of the culture, but we are hopeful that perhaps with years coming and new leaders coming in, those of us or you in this room, this is an area that we might address. So why is Kenya so popular? We have the first US president, right? We just might have a second one because apparently one of the GOP contenders is actually going to Kenya on December 27th to trace his roots. And the leading GOP contender, when he heard that, said, when that guy goes to Kenya to trace his roots, make sure he doesn't come back, because if he does, he will be president, because we have a guy who went and traced his roots, and now he's the president from Kenya. So I thought that was funny. You guys need to laugh and clap about that. All right. So anyway, please take a moment to listen to the President's address. I think it is important for those of us who are out here to keep in touch with what's going on back home. Before Vero comes up to introduce our main speaker, I want to just remind you about the little sheets that are on your tables, and we do have pens as well. Please take a moment to suggest some names for this group. The 2015 Kenya Jamhuri Day Dinner and Dance is brought to you by a dedicated team of Kenyans who volunteer as leaders and members in their various community organizations here in Minnesota. So this is the same group that organized this past summer's 2 days Kenya Madaraka Day celebrations that was attended by Kenya's ambassador to the United States. And that is customary. The ambassador always attends the Madaraka Day celebrations. We need your help in coming up with a name for this group, and so we hope that you will take part in that throughout the night and give us some good suggestions. So with that, Veronica, I'd like to invite Vero up here. Like we were told, Vero is our senator here, right? Senator Veronica Rotich. And she will introduce our next speaker.
An activist, politician, and a leader of our community. Sharon was the first African American and the first woman to be the mayor of the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. A St. Paul native for most of her life, she fought for racial equality, women, family and child care issues, youth development, and rural development. In 1978, Sharon co-founded Harriet Tubman Shelter for battered women in Minneapolis. She is also involved in the community crime prevention programs and much to reduce community police tension. She was elected in 1983 to Minneapolis City Council, where she represented the 8th Ward. The following year, she was Minnesota delegate at the Democratic National Convention in San Francisco, where she witnessed the nomination of Minnesota Senator Walter Mondale for the President of the United States. In 1990, Walter was elected President of the Minneapolis City Council. 3 years later, she announced her candidacy for mayor and won the historic election, serving 2 terms as a mayor from 1994 to 2000. She was sworn in on January 4, 1994. In her inauguration speech, as printed in the St. Paul Pioneer Press, she said, "Some people say we don't know what our values are, or what we as a community do not hold values in common. I disagree. I believe we do share community values that transcend race, economic status, individual need, and nation. Values that constitute the framework of our society and community life. Our values are what education, respect, and responsibility." By the end of the 1990s, Minneapolis saw a fast population increase since 1940. Sharon was credited with reversing the 50-year economic slide. In 2013, Minneapolis renamed the ironic 3rd Avenue Bridge downtown in her honor. Currently, Sharon is a senior fellow at the University of Minnesota Royal Washington Center for Human Relations and Social Justice, where she works at anti-racism initiative and also a recipient of the Rosa Parks Award from the American Association of Affirmative Action and the Electric Rush Distinguished Service Award, presented by the National Bar Association. Sharon also helped establish the National Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Today, she's the current Vice President of Government Affairs and Human Rights. She's also extended advisor to the past, the Governor of Western Issues, Alfred Madaraka, and many others that have met her. It's an honor to welcome Mayor Belton as a keynote speaker. She's a great friend of the Kenyan community and has always been a great friend of the community at large. Ms. Sharon Belton's long list of accomplishments in both public and private sector is long, and as a former mayor, I would like to invite her to come and talk to us.
Thank you. This is good. This is good? Okay, I'll let you do it. Thank you.
All right, I think I'm all buttoned up, right? Well, first, let me say a very special thank you to Veronica for the introduction. I usually kind of shy out about the introductions, just, because it's hard to hear those things that you've done. Not because I'm not proud of them, but it's just kind of, I'm a very humble person. And kind of chokes me up a little bit when I think, God, you did that? So I actually did create a presentation for this evening that I'm calling Freedom, Democracy, and Prosperity, the Promise of Independence. And there's a question mark after the promise. So I know that you've been sitting for a while and you've heard a lot of wonderful presentations. And there'll be some commonality between at least my presentation and that you just heard from Dr. Anderson. But I don't know that I can speak to any of the things that we heard from the sergeant, except that I'm a little bit shocked that there's going to be drinking going on at the training. And I think we got that on YouTube. So let me just begin by saying thank you for inviting me to the Jamhuri Independence Day celebration. This is the first time that I have been to a celebration of this type for Kenya. So I'm hoping that I do okay tonight and that you will invite me to come back again. It really is an honor for me to be here to participate in the celebration of Kenya's hard-fought independence from British rule. And to prepare for tonight, I actually went back into my history books and on the internet and started reading a lot about the independence. And it was really kind of fun to do because I remember learning in college about Jomo Kenyatta and about Odinga and about the Mau Mau uprising and all those things. And they didn't really come back to me until I was, reading through all of the literature. And if my professor Kate was here, I would give him a big shout out for making sure that we did learn when we were in college about the history of other countries in Africa, because many of the struggles that they experienced were not dissimilar to struggles that we experienced here in the United States as African Americans. This is a day to, in my opinion, to reflect on the past and to also spend some time to recommit ourselves to the principles of freedom and democracy and this idea of prosperity for all. I listened carefully to some of the comments of Dr. Anderson, who talked a little bit about the disparities that exist still today in Kenya. And I was just pleased and delighted to hear that there's so much that you all are doing here and around the diaspora, around the world, to help your brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters back in Kenya. There's still a lot more that needs to be done. So I hope that we will be able to marshal even more people to get involved and to be engaged. One of the things that I really love and I collect at home is music. I don't sing very well, but I love music. And I really love to hear the songs from around the world about people's quest for freedom. The songs remind me of the bravery and the sacrifice and the hope and the love that people feel for their quest for freedom and democracy. The songs really help us to never forget how fragile freedom can be and that we must be vigilant to our efforts to protect our freedom. And when I say that, vigilant to protect our freedoms, this is the message that I want to share with you today. It is important to celebrate and understand our past, but it is really important for us to take that victory and figure out how we can marshal it going forward. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, what that means, in my opinion, is that we need to show up and that we need to speak up for our rights. It means that we need to advocate for our children, advocate for our elders, and the overall well-being of our community, not just in Kenya, but right here in the United States of America. It means sharing our abundance with those who are less fortunate, be they our family, be they a friend, or even a stranger. So before I give you my official remarks, this is just like the intro. I wanted to share with you a little bit about my own history with Kenya. First, I will tell you that I've never been there yet, okay? We're going to fix that. But as many of you just heard, I was the former mayor of the city of Minneapolis. And in that role, I had the honor and the privilege of actually signing the formal agreement with the mayor of Eldoret, Kenya, to form our sister city relationship. Now, to prove that, I couldn't find it today when I went up in my attic, but to prove that, I actually do have the key to the city of Eldoret, okay? Now I'm going to find it because when I go back, I'm going to take it and see if it actually works. So the object, if you don't know, the object of the Sister City program is really to foster education and cultural exchanges and best practices in governance. And I really was pleased to know and read updates that partnership is really still very, very strong and in place, and that many exchanges have taken place. There's been educational ones, and the one that really actually just tickles my heart is that our Minneapolis Fire Department actually donated a fire truck. Okay, so I know that you can ship stuff. Where's the brother who has the business that is import and export? I know you can ship stuff, but these people ship a fire truck. I don't know how much that cost, but I'm glad it got there, and I'm sure it's being put to good use. I just thought that was amazing. Earlier this evening, we took a few moments to acknowledge Hennepin County Judge LeJune Lang for her strong support for Kenya, and also identified the fact that she's been a tireless leader in keeping the Eldoret Sister City relationship alive. And I just really want to just take another opportunity to acknowledge her good works and ask you to join me in a round of applause for her. Now, I've always known about LeJune's organization, the International Leadership Institute, but in the last couple of years, I've been paying a lot more attention to it. Because the judge was kind enough to introduce me to several of the leaders who have come over to Minnesota, and she's brought them out to meet me at Thomson Reuters, which is where I'm working, and gave me the opportunity, and my team members, the opportunity to talk to the government leaders about the tools and the resources that we have at Thomson Reuters to actually help address some of the issues that the president is talking about today. How do you identify corruption, and how does it work? What are the tools that you can actually put in place to detect it and then to bring people to justice? Talk about tools that we can provide for the banking community to even further strengthen Nairobi's position in the world as an economic powerhouse on the continent. There are things that we can do by working together to make these things happen. And it all starts with a sister city relationship, well over 20 years ago. So LeJune, really congratulations to you and the work that you're doing through the Leadership Institute, and I hope that partnership continues. I want to just share with you one other connection that I have with Kenya. And that is to tell you that I, as an executive at Thomson Reuters, am the individual responsible for our relationship with an organization called Books for Africa. And I don't know if you know anything about the organization, but the organization collects books from publishers, from individuals, etc., and we ship them over to schools and libraries all across the continent. Over 1.5 million books, sent in the history of the organization, and it's just really an impressive record. But what we do at Thomson Reuters is that we're a legal publisher. I mean, we do a lot of other business lines, but we're a legal publisher here in Minnesota, and what we do is donate law libraries to go with the general population books. And these law libraries find their way into law schools and at human rights organizations where people are dedicated to trying to further the rule of law and make sure that all people have access to basic human and civil rights. So several of the law libraries have found their way to law schools in Kenya, and these are going to law schools who otherwise could not afford to buy the books themselves, who otherwise can't allow the law students to take the books home because there aren't sufficient books to make that possible. So I really feel good about my role in leading that particular initiative. And as Veronica indicated, I've also had the privilege of being able to host many elected and appointed officials, including the ambassador to the United States from Kenya, who I've had a chance now to meet a couple of times, once in my office and the second time in his office at the embassy in Washington, D.C. What I wanted to tell you about me, if you didn't know it already, is that my commitment as a servant leader, and I call myself a servant leader, is to help. I know that I am keeping you from cake and dancing. Independence, self-determination, and sovereignty. People want to be free to decide their own fate without restriction because of race, age, national origin, religion, gender, orientation. Nobody wants to be dominated or oppressed in any way. And when we are, as a people, what do? We push back. We push back. The sergeant talked a little bit about some kind of pushing back that we don't necessarily really want to do sometimes. But generally speaking, when we are feeling with our backs up against the wall, and our rights are being denied, we're going to push back. The leaders in Kenya, in Ghana, even here in the United States, we pushed back when our rights were being denied. The expectation of basic human rights and civil rights is in the DNA of all people. It will not be repressed. It is simply our human nature to want to be free. It does not mean lawless, but simply to fight, simply to be free to live our lives in peace and in harmony. That's what we want. That's what freedom, in my mind, is all about. The story of the Kenyan fight for independence was hard fought. Just again, I read through my history books again and searched out the story. And many lives were lost on both sides. And life is precious. Maybe you did it this morning when you got up, and just remember the victory. Just remember the victory. And then while you're rejoicing in that, wherever that form that takes, I want you to also, on this day, to keep in mind that there's still so much that we need to do to ensure Kenyans' independence brings prosperity to all Kenyans. Okay, so that same history in the report and the account of our status today in the country suggests that there's still more work that needs to be done to ensure that independence is bringing economic prosperity to all Kenyans. So that's message number one. Second question, everything is in three parts. What is democracy? So just think about that for a few moments. What is democracy? What does that mean to you? If you were to identify three words around democracy, what would they be? So I'm going to tell you mine. Self-rule, individual rights, and this one might surprise you a little bit, citizen participation. So everybody knows, from all of the history books, yours, mine, all the stories around the world, Poland, etc. Democracy means one person, one vote. Okay? Nobody gets to cast my vote. Nobody gets to tell me what to do, how to think. One person, one vote. It means open and transparent government. There's no king. This is a democracy. This is a republic. We all have the right to express our votes and our minds. It includes, in democracy, the promise of personal liberties without regard to race, status, or any other characteristic that distinguishes you from me or me from you. In other words, the democracy promises a level playing field, a culture where you can thrive not because of who you know, but what you know. Right? Now we know what happens when the opposite is in place. Now maintaining a democracy requires the full engagement of the citizens of the democracy. So remember that old adage that states that the world is ruled by those who show up? How many of you have heard that? Hands? Well, just a handful of you? Oh gosh, this is common knowledge. Well, I do want you to know, if you didn't know it, that it is actually true. Okay? The world is ruled by the people who show up. So if you don't show up, your agenda is not going to be advanced. So in a democracy, it requires you to show up. So if you care about the city where you live, you care about the state you live in, the country, be it the United States or back in Kenya, you really got to show up and be prepared to take some action of some kind. Otherwise, the democracy, as you know it, does not exist and will not thrive. What actions you take, what individual actions you choose to take, is totally up to you. But I do want to tell you that I do have a minimum threshold that I do want to just suggest. And that is that you have to vote. You have to vote. You got to at least show up once a year or in the election cycle and express your point of view. So I was asking a few folks how many Kenyans there actually were in Minnesota. So a couple people, Tom, a couple other people said, well, about 10,000. Now I don't know where you all live, but I heard it was in one of the Brooklyns. So that's either Brooklyn Center or Brooklyn Park, for those of you who don't know or didn't get that. So what I want you to think about for just 1 second is this: what could happen in a local election if all the Kenyans that were living in the Brooklyns decided to vote in a block? 10,000 people. What do you think would happen? That would just be amazing. What do you think would happen if just 500 of you showed up in City Hall around an issue that was really important to you? Or 100 of you showed up over at a subcommittee meeting of the Minnesota legislature? Do you know that people would freak out? But guess what else they would do? They would listen. They would listen. That's what democracy means. It requires us to show up and it requires us to participate. I just want to suggest to you that you may not think often about the power that you have, but there's power in numbers. And people need to figure out how to use that basic power of just showing up. One of my favorite things about democracy is the potential to form the coalition. Okay? The power of the coalition. So if you got 10,000, and I got 10,000, and he's got 10,000, and we put that 10,000 voices together, we have 30,000 voices. All talking about the same thing. We're all talking about equity or domestic violence or economic opportunity or access to capital. That's what the Independence Day celebration is all about to me. trying to figure out how we can leverage the victory, the celebration, so that we can unite our voices for the things that we care about. I care about peace and justice. I care about education and health equity. I care about equal opportunity. I care about safe communities too. I want our communities to be safe. I want our children to feel safe. I want our young boys and girls to feel like they can move about our community without fear. We can have those things with our voices united, with our ideas united. So, on this day of celebration, let's think about how we can commit some of our time and some of our energy to building the coalitions that are necessary to empower our communities. Third thing, let's talk about prosperity. So now we're getting ready to wrap up, right? 3, getting ready to walk out. All right, prosperity. So what does prosperity mean to you, right? So again, if you had a pencil in front of you, I'd ask you to write down 3 things that reflect what prosperity means to you. And if you have a pen, please feel free to write these things down, and you can think about them later and talk about them, with your friends, your family. So prosperity. So 3 things that came to mind immediately are education, because you need it in order to have it. So if you want prosperity, you need education. Okay? We need to pound that message into our children early. When I mean pound, I don't really mean touch them. I just mean, reinforce verbally. Second one, economic opportunity. So when I think about prosperity, I think about economic opportunity. Okay? And then the last thing is equity. Now the list really could be longer, but I only could choose 3 things, right? Because I only want to talk for 20 minutes. But these are my 3. What are yours? You don't know what they are, think about them. Have a list. Work your list. So the question that I wanted to raise was, do freedom and democracy ensure prosperity and independence? Just think about that for a moment. Do freedom and democracy ensure prosperity and independence? Now, when I first wrote that down on my computer when I was writing all this, or typing all this actually, I said no, right off the bat. No, they don't. No, they don't. Because prosperity means successful, flourishing, thriving conditions. We're all living in that. And so if I have freedom, if I live and have freedom and I'm in a democracy, does it necessarily mean that I am going to be successful and flourish and thrive and live in thriving conditions? No. No. For all the reasons that I just said before. Because we don't show up and we don't talk about what we need in order to thrive. We don't use the freedoms that we have and leverage the democracy that others have fought for. And so, no, the prosperity is not automatic. So there's things that we need to do. Now, I bet, I'm just looking around the room, and then we've had some introductions of some of you really successful people. There are people in this room who are really enjoying prosperity. And I think every one of them, or every one of you that is enjoying prosperity should be congratulated for your hard work and for your good fortune. But there is something that I would ask of you, and that is that if you have this prosperity, if you're enjoying this prosperity and this good fortune, that every one of you needs to reach back or across and mentor one of us in the room or somebody out in the community so that they can learn from your success. Because if you don't do that, then it's just all about you. And it's never all about you. It's always about us. The united us, and we forget that sometimes. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to say tonight is that I really wish that on this day of celebration, this week of celebration, that all of the adults and the community role models should be speaking directly to our children and our youth about the importance of education, self-respect, and personal responsibility. Okay? That needs to happen now, and all of us need to do it. And we need to do it everywhere. We need to do it in our churches, in our mosques, in our social clubs, in our networks, all those places where you're interacting with children and youth, so that they know and understand that there are some values. There are some values and principles that we as a people hold dear. And education is one of them. And self-respect is another one. And personal responsibility. If all of our children and all of us were taking personal responsibility, we would never encounter the sergeant anywhere in his work except if it was at a party. We wouldn't see him and he wouldn't see us, unless he was giving us a nice, lovely lecture like he did this evening, or any of his friends. They wouldn't be pulling us over. If we were engaging in self-respect for behavior and treated each other with self-respect, we wouldn't be having the kinds of problems that were described, that we're suffering in our homes. We wouldn't have these issues, but we do, and because we do, we need to figure out how they can be addressed. And I promise you, if you start early, if you teach children these things early, they will not adopt these behaviors as young people and as adults. So there's something that we can do about it. There's as I said, I listen to music, and there's this beautiful song by this Nigerian pop singer. I think she's a pop singer. Sometimes I think she's singing folk songs or whatever. Her name is Asha, something like that. Anybody know her? No, see? God, it's one person. Gosh. Oh, I'm really in. I'm hot. Okay. So anyway, she has this wonderful song. It's called Fire on the Mountain. So if you've got iTunes or something, just download it. It only costs you $1.25 or, something like that. 99 cents it might even just cost you. But anyway, in her song, she talks about the fact that too many of our children are taking advice from stars that they see on the television, and the athletes, and all these other people in the media. Kids should be getting advice about how to live their lives from people on TV, because that stuff's all nonsense. Right? They need to be getting it from us. So, we got our own pop stars talking to us, about what we need to be doing as adults, and I think it's time for us to listen. Freedom and democracy are no guarantee of prosperity. I gave you my answer to that question. I don't know what yours is, but I do want to close by telling you one thing. If you don't remember anything that I said this evening, just remember one thing, please. And that is that we must exercise our freedom, and we must take responsibility as members of our democratic society, or we will never, ever truly be independent. Happy Independence Day.
Thank you very much, former Mayor of Minneapolis, Sharon Sales Belton. Please give another round of applause. I think Thank you. So we are coming down towards the fun part of the program. Not that everything else wasn't fun, but like the mayor alluded, she was standing between your dancing, itching feet and cake. We've had some desserts, and that's great. But before we do that, I think let's just acknowledge all our three speakers again. Sergeant Tamari. Thank you very much. We are very proud. We consider you our Kenyan brother, son. We always own anyone who has any connection with Kenya. Thank you very much. That was a great speech. Dr. Carl Anderson, thank you very much. You are now an honorary Kenyan, but you also injected a lot of humor, so that was good. And I think a lot of us appreciated that, so thank you very much. And of course, our keynote speaker, the former mayor of Minneapolis, Dr. Sharon Salzfeld. And I would also like to add to that the wonderful Judge Lajun Lang, who's always been a friend of Kenya, has visited Kenya and other parts of Africa several times. So please give her a round of applause as well. And now, to the most important constituents in the room, all of you looking all very beautiful, glamorous, dressed up, ready to celebrate. We appreciate you. We thank you so much for coming. So please give yourselves a fantastic round of applause. Thank you. At this point, what we're going to do is, I will ask the three speakers, as well as Judge Lejun, to move with us to the cake table, and I'll ask our president, Chewy, to please lead our guests to the table. We're going to do a photo op and cut the cake, and the DJ, you can at least entertain our guests with some music, and cake will be served, but we are also going to get the music going as well. So let's have our guests, and the committee members, please join the guests at the cake table. We'll do a brief photo op and cake ceremony of cake cutting for Madaraka. Where's Vero? Or Senator? We need you there. So DJ, you can put the rest.
everybody. Hello. Hello. I guess closer there. Hello. We have just two more people that just need two more organizations that are here. Just two, and then we're gonna go to the music. We're gonna have soft landing. Just come and tell us about their realty program, and then we'll have African women, then we're done. Just, here's 5 minutes. Give us 5 minutes.
Umekuja late, tulikuwa tumetoka mapema.
My name is Charles Jesubai. I am in real estate services, and our office is in Brooklyn Park. We do real estate for any questions about real estate. If you want to take a mortgage, we also have people that we work with for financing. And so we do all around everything. If you are one of those people who are looking getting yourself an investment, a lifetime investment, a house, a property, please let us know. Even if you have a question, that will still be okay. I have my card with me, and we are somewhere so that I know today is another day to be a part. At least it's good that I introduce myself to you so that you can give us opportunity to work with you towards getting your house or selling your house or short sale or something. Thank you so much.
Okay, that was just my with self-planning. And I'm just going to introduce an organization that I lead. It's called African Women Youth and Resource Center. We're currently working with African AIDS awareness to help curb AIDS. We have an increase of AIDS that's going on in the African community, and so we're working to do that. We also have a girls project going on where we have 10 I think that can people hear now? I guess for complaining, they were trying to listen. So we also have a girls project that's happening in December, where we have girls having 3 nights somewhere, and we're going to talk about life in America and Kenya and all that stuff. So feel free to come for cards from me. We're also going to work with the young professionals because we're thinking of doing mentoring for youth. I think from there, that's the last organization, unless there's an organization. Henry. Thanks for coming, and there's cake coming for everyone.
have a lot of speakers playing music with the people. So feel free to get to the next floor, have some cake, and have some tea. The music that is played, that will be served. Then we have Kenyan tea. I think I forgot to mention that. There is tea.
Scandinavian.
Actually,
we must be related.
That is so funny you say that, yeah. But I have no Scandinavian blood in me at all. Yeah, thank you for your work that you're doing. That's awesome.
God
nipige basi mzuri. Hapana, piga straight. Don't worry about the background. Don't think of it. That is good. No, don't worry about the background. That's good enough. Don't worry. It's a good one. You're touching. Ulimpiga picha ya close. Acha nayo. Acha nayo, hiyo ni ya kusoma.
Oh, that's smart. So you know a lot.
Yes. That's true.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
So where will we get the picture? Did you guys eat something?
Yes.
Okay. So chai. Okay.
You too.
You will appear.
I am a
Miss me.
I'm not going to down with Songe kando kidogo. Napiga. Yes.
Thank you.
It's our